SDRs and BDRs, are you the kind of rep who is constantly finding ways to help your peers excel? When you find a new hack, do you immediately share it in Slack or at the next team meeting? Maybe Sales Enablement is for you. I'm Sarah Brazier, Senior SDR here at Gong. And today we're going to be talking to Global Enablement Manager Brandy Ringler, who will be sharing her story of how she transitioned from SDR to AE to Sales Enablement. Brandy, thank you so much for being on Life After SDR.
Yeah, of course.
So in this episode, we're going to be unpacking what it's like to be in enablement, how an SDR can identify if they want to become an enablement or want to move into an enablement function. So right off the bat, my first question for you is this. A lot of times when I talk to different AEs or SDR people or even people in enablement, they sometimes say like, you shouldn't go into enablement until you become a closer. So is that true? And if so, why?
I don't know if it's 100% true. I think there are a lot of enablement folks that I've seen be great at their job that don't have closing experience. I do think that one of the biggest problems that enablement folks face is the problem of credibility. And I think without having closing experience, I think it's really difficult for you to get the buy-in of the reps and the leaders to build programming with, and for them to think of you as, you know, a resource that they need to think of you as.
So if you're an SDR and you want to gain that credibility, then obviously you need to be a closer, right, before you can move into enablement.
I honestly think it's probably the best path to go into, especially if you want to be doing general sales enablement, where you're doing onboarding for hunters, growth reps, and SDRs.
Cool. So then, like, if that's what I'm imagining for my future, what do I need to do? Like, how long do I need to go from SDR to a top performer, then move into a closing role, and then be a closer for how long until I feel ready to be an enablement somebody?
I don't know if I would put a specific time frame, but I think the question that I always asked myself was, how long do I need to be in a role where I am credible to other people that I'm coaching? So if you're a top performer, typically you're the one being tapped on the shoulder to mentor others that are coming into the role. I think it's really hard to get comfortable in any role for a sub-year tenure. So, I mean, at minimum, you would think that you'd be in an SDR role for anywhere from 9 to 12 months, and then hopefully a closing role for at least a year to get the feeling that, like, hey, I really have a grasp of this, and I know what I would tell other people in my position.
Cool. So it's really like you're not committing like years and years and years.
No.
So for you, what was that career path like? You were an SDR for a while, then you moved into a closing role. Like, can you take me through your career life?
Yeah, so I was an SDR for about 10 months. I moved into like an SMB commercial role, and I was in that role for about a year. And then I was a mid-market rep, and then I was an enterprise rep at two different companies. So mine was a little bit longer of a tenure. It took me a little bit longer to realize that the path I wanted was a little bit different. So yeah, and then the opportunity at Gong presented itself, and it was too good not to take.
Yeah. So what was the thing that made you realize I actually kind of want to pursue enablement?
Yeah. It's actually a question I struggled with for a long time. Mm-hmm. I feel like the natural default in sales is that if you're good at sales, then you should keep doing sales. But what I started to realize, especially in my last role, is a lot of the work that I put in was actually mentoring other reps to become good salespeople. And a lot of like the programming or onboarding material would be, hey, listen to this call. These are the steps that I would take to prospect, et cetera. And I realized that there was this transition where I didn't want to be so isolated in an IC role. I wanted to be in a role that interacted with every facet of the company. And that was like the tipping point that, hey, I love sales, but I might not want to be in this closing role for the next 10 to 15 years.
I think onboarding is a piece of that. There's the continued development of AEs to get them to the next level, so you can obviously close more business. I mean, that's the objective of the enablement function.
Yep.
But then there's also another piece that's sort of, leveling up your employees so that they can continue to build their career, kind of like this series is about, it's building your career. So when you think about sales organizations and the SDR function specifically, what are some things that managers can start implementing or other enablement teams can start implementing in order to start building out the SDR function from not just SDRs, but give them a space to grow into a closing role?
I think one of the easiest things is having a buddy from a different department so that SDRs don't feel so siloed within their own world and they have somebody else to bounce ideas off of, and they feel like the only people they know in an organization isn't their org. But I think as they develop more into the role, I think as they're gearing up for promotion, I think part of it is on the manager to set up almost ask me anything sessions or Q&A sessions with either CSMs or AEs so that the SDR can get a real understanding of what expectations are. I think the biggest gap is not knowing expectations moving into one of those roles. I also think we have the benefit of having Gong. So SDRs here have the ability to listen to both sales calls and CS calls, understand if there's one path that they would want to take over the other. But I think the hardest thing to mimic for organizations is a top-down approach where SDRs are treated like they're a really impactful member of the team. And I think that if you have senior leaders acting that way, then I think it opens up more SDRs to just feeling confident about approaching leaders about interest in other departments.
Awesome. So I know we only have a few minutes left because you have a meeting that you have to get off to.
I do. Lots
Brandy
of meetings.
is super nice because she took time out of her super busy schedule. This is like the third time we've tried to have this interview.
Sorry, Sarah.
Oh, no, it's great. I'm glad we finally got you. So, you were an SDR, you were an AE for a long time, now you've moved into the enablement function. As you're thinking about building your own career, your dream career, and the building blocks, where you're building to something like what's next on the horizon, what's the next step for you? Who are you going to become in what's your 5-year plan?
I think every couple years I look at where I'm at and I think, am I still growing? Is it challenging in just painful enough of a way? But I think the benefit of now being in this role is I talk to a lot of different departments in the company, and I regularly have conversations with our director of sales ops, with product marketing, with our director of strategy, and I think it gives me more insight into the different areas of a company than I had before. I think I'm pretty happy in sales enablement at this time, so I don't have a perfect answer for you, but I think just like I'd give advice to an SDR is I keep having conversations about what people like about their jobs. And I don't think that that's something that'll ever necessarily stop.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brandy. And I can't wait to see how your career continues to blossom here at Gong.
Thank you.
Think Sales Enablement is the job for you? Let us know in the comments below. And be sure to follow Gong on LinkedIn to catch next week's episode. I'm Sarah Brazier. And remember, when in doubt, hit the phones.